One of the topics that I love to talk about at the Music Medicine is the importance of the sound, and I couldn't have a better person to make this conversation than my today's guest. Guy Yair Beider is a Himalayan bowl expertise and a master on his pieces. I met with his work some months ago, and I got really impressed with the quality and the detailed information that he shares, and I knew I have to have him at the Music Medicine podcast. I sent him a message and we immediately connected as we found out that we share similar stories about how we entered our path related to love, pain, and personal transformation, and we had an amazing conversation. We talked about the importance of listening and of sound. We talked about the 3 types of sound. We broke down some myths about sound and music, and of course we talked about Himalayan bowls. Especially for this podcast, Guy gave his permission to share one of his meditational tracks performed with Himalayan bowls, so stay until the end of this interview and enjoy this beautiful meditational track performed by Guy.
This is Dimitrios, the founder of the Music Medicine. This is the Music Medicine podcast, and on the other side I have Guy Yair Beider. He's a Himalayan singing bowl practitioner and meditation facilitator, and he's the founder of Bells of Bliss. He's born and raised in Ukraine and had always a sense that there is more to life than the ordinary. When he was 8 months, he has experienced a clinical death, and that incident has been the catalyst to justify his curiosity about the purpose of life. Back in the 90s, he was forced to move to Israel with his family due to search of a better future. And in the hard years to come, music has become his best friend and his sanctuary. In 2005, he visited New York, he fell in love, and he decided to settle, get married, and start a new life. And his first experience came with the sound of the singing bowls in an ayahuasca ceremony. And the peaceful effect on him became the reason to change his perception about music. And shift also his awareness to the path of sound healing. That was just the beginning, and his story with the healing effects of the singing bowl is a story of love and pain, actually. The sound of the singing bowl has been infused in his life with his wife during that time, and has been a catalyst to their relationship. And after a tragedy that he has experienced with the death of his ex-wife, he decided to visit Tibet and Himalaya on a search and on a quest of the sound. And there he discovered joy and happiness. He discovered silence. He had a crazy experience with a couple of monks that taught him the art of listening. And ever since, Guy, he has found a purpose to his life, and this purpose is not in front of his eyes, but is in front of his ears. Guy says that on the physical level, sound would not be in vacuum, but if sometimes there is a vacuum in our heart, we can just listen, and we will find all the sound that is there. Guy, welcome to the Music Medicine podcast.
Thank you so much, Dimitris, for hosting me, and thank you so much for bringing up my story to the listeners. Yes, I found that listening is the key for the happiness. I found that listening is a good reference to understand where you're at, what you are. And I'm sharing my expertise and experience and knowledge with other people. I bring the art of listening to my audience. And now I'm very happy to be sharing it with you and with your audience. Thank you.
I'm very happy to host you. And to be honest, I have been going through your story that you shared with me, and I got really emotional. First of all, because I found a lot of similarities on the way you have discovered your path and how I discovered my path. And it's a story of love, pain, and music and sound. But there is an incident that happened during your search of sound back in Tibet. with this monk that you found randomly on the street, and he looked like a beggar, and he was playing the singing bowl, and he was laughing, and that was I think an important moment for you and for your path. So would you like to share the story with us, because I think it's very interesting for the people to hear.
Yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity. Actually, it's one of my favorite stories, and I share this story a lot during my sessions. So while I was in my journey, my search for the authentic knowledge about singing bowls and authentic knowledge about how to use sound as a practice, as a spiritual practice, as a healing practice, I didn't find much information except for the information that the local people was sharing with the tourists, the information that tourists would like to hear. Something that is not related to any authentic knowledge. So I saw this monk, and it was quite just a few last days of my journey. So I saw this monk that was actually striking the singing bowl, and I watched him doing something with it. I mean, I saw him being very serious about what he was doing. So I approached this monk and asked him, I asked my guide, my translator, could you please talk to him and ask him, how does he use a singing bowl? So the monk stroked the bowl, he smiled with his toothless mouth, and he said something which was translated to me as listen. I nodded my head, I was very polite, and I asked my translator, could you please tell him that I've been playing singing bowls for years now. I have a big collection in New York. I'm also certified in running sound as a healing modality. So could you please ask him to be more specific about how does he use the singing bowl? My translator, as I requested, he translated everything, and the answer was another strike and the same word that I heard before. Also, my translator told me, listen, we really don't have time for it. So, well, I think, you know, it's pretty done deal. He won't teach you. I said, well, let's spend another few moments. And for the matter of fact, I can stay here for years and study from this guy if I see that there is something worth to study. So could you please ask him, does he cleanse the space or doing some ritual, talking to the spirits, or does he do anything with his body, some sort of meditation that he's aligning his consciousness to? It was all translated, and again, I received the same answer, striking the bowl, and the guy said the same word, which was translated as listen. I guess my guide, he understood the big lesson behind it faster than I did. And he told me, well, this is the teaching. Now you have to live, because he won't tell you anything else. Just listen. I was thinking quite a lot about this and reviewing, am I really listening when I think I'm listening? Because we don't know what we don't know until we really put some light on this question and we analyze this question. And I figured out that I still have a lot to learn how to listen. So that's the story. Yeah.
That's a really cool story, actually, and quite funny story. And I guess life is simple, but to attain simplicity in life, to get the profound messages of life, that's a kind of a hard path, because we tend to be very mental and very judgmental and create all these kind of stories. You know, we see a person and doing something and we think that something else is happening, like in your case with the monk, he's communicating with the spirits or he's doing something extraordinary, and it's not at all. And at the same time can be.
So that's exactly about what listening is. You know, real listening is about to be transparent. Real listening is about not having any prejudgments, but being present for the message within the sound. Would that be a verbal message or emotional message? Any message. And basically that, you know, leads me to one of the topics I would like to talk about is what the conscious listening is.
Mm-hmm.
So may we approach to this aspect?
Yeah. I mean, the conversation is naturally going there, so let's do it.
Yes, yeah. So when I explain to my students and to my audience how should they listen to what I do, or not only what I do, what they do, how should they listen to the life lessons? So I bring this example. I say that there are 3 types of sound, and I kind of made it up. I mean, to, you know, for better communication with people. So there are 3 types of sound. There is an audible sound, which falls into the frequencies, the range, the hearing range that we can hear. So this is an audible sound, such as my sound, such as my voice right now. The second type of sound is the sound that is below or above the frequencies that we can register with our ears. However, these frequencies, they still have an influence on our physical body, such as ultrasound, for example, which is being used in medicine to break the kidney stones. So you cannot hear this sound yet. It breaks the material in your body. It breaks the stones. So the second type of sound is the sound that is not audible. The third type of sound, and here I make a pause while I'm explaining to the audience, and I say, do you guys, can you recall the song of, let's say, Freddie Mercury, I Want to Ride My Bicycle? People start smiling, as you do. They don't know where I lead them. So after a few moments, I see people, yes, we know that song. So I say the third type of sound is the voice of Freddie Mercury singing in your head right now. The third type of sound is the sound of your own thoughts. This is the sound that only you can hear. Now, being conscious listener is basically to be present for all these 3 types of sound. You are tapping in to the audible sound. You really, well, there is a difference between passive hearing and active listening. So you're listening actively to this sound to understand what character is this sound bringing, to understand what is the surface of the sound, what is the structure, what color, what scenario is there behind the sound, what is the message. So you're fully present for the audible sound. Also, you are in the state of meditation. You are connected to your body, and you scan your body. Where does this sound reflect in your body, and what does it do? So if there's some motion of energy, and what is emotion actually? It's energy in motion. So if you feel something is moving in your body and arises as an emotion, be also present for that. And of course, be present for the third type of sound, your monologue that you have. Tap in. If you hear something that makes you feel sad, for example, melancholic, go in there. See what was that? What was that really made you to feel this way? Or you feel joy. So acknowledge this joy, recognize this joy, because this way you're strengthening your muscles to recall this joy when you need it. Or if you feel sad, so go there and see. Why am I sad? Maybe there is some nut that I have to open. Maybe there is something that I'm hiding from myself. So use the sound as a tool, an opportunity to go there and do something for yourself. Now, if I may continue and say something about sound healing, we all talk about sound healing, but not many of us really know how to explain what is sound healing. In my case, the explanation is active listening. The healing may happen only when you are present to the sound and when you, as the one who experienced this tool, really use this tool. Otherwise, it just becomes a concert, and in entertainment, it's not a healing.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, and it's really fascinating actually, because by accepting this principle, which, I mean, it's a fact of how sound works, and these three different categories of sounds that you just mentioned, there are two things that are coming on my mind. First of all is to be able to listen to ourselves and to the monologue that we have on our mind, and to be able to acknowledge what's really happening on our mind. And this conversation can prevent us from a lot of situations, I can say, in our life, because what we think is what we eventually create, what's happening in our life. So by understanding the mechanism of the mind and the monologue, and which case, which scenario, which sound, which word takes us where and creates what, that gives a tremendous capacity and power actually to eliminate the negative effect of this monologue that we have on our mind and replace it with positive, which is something that hypnotherapy does pretty much.
Maybe not necessarily negative effect, but the usual effect.
Yeah, we can call it usual. Yeah.
Just a regular effect, and we can choose something, you know, once you're present, once you're aware of something that serves you for good, why won't you just isolate that aspect and use this aspect only? So yes, it's all about conscious listening. It's about being present. It's about choosing what to listen to.
Okay, now that's, I would like to stop here, and I would like to develop a little bit this, because this has been, like, people that they know me, they know that I'm the baddest bitch with music, and I say it publicly exactly like this. And why? Because I have my own reasons, but I would say that through my life, I have cultivated a kind of sensitivity to sound and to music, to be able to feel which music works how and what kind of effect has. And most of the times I would say my feeling is correct, and the kind of environment or situation that I would like to create, it happens. So choosing what to listen. Now tell me why this is important. The quality of the sound, or the quality of the music that we're listening, or the quality of the environmental sound that we are into.
Yeah, so yeah, I would like to dedicate some time for this conversation. This is a very important topic. Very important. So, you know, looking back at my life, I can see the relationship between the situations I've been through and my taste in music. It's really matching. You know, when I was a teenager and listening to the heavy metal, I'm still in heavy metal, but different heavy metal, singing also. Yeah, but when I used to listen to aggressive music, it was charging me with this aggression, and that was exactly the world I was creating around myself, the world of negative energy, the world of aggression, the world of anger. I remember first time being introduced to the band Oliver Shanti. I kind of liked this music, but it was very weird for me. I almost felt that it's not cool for me to listen to this music. But the music was so good, I didn't have to convince myself a lot to listen to it. And it changed, it changed the atmosphere within me. And of course, I was charged with a little different content, and of course, it was projected through my vision. It was projected through my speech with friends. It was projected through everything. So it created a different environment for me and different scenario as well. Now, speaking about not music but the sound which the music is made of. Um, so besides my um, besides my work with the sound, I have a daytime job, and I work as a mechanical engineer in a very noisy environment. But I'm very present to what is happening with myself while being there in this environment. Using my earplugs and ear protection, muffins, earplugs. And I can tell you that while being there in this place of a lot of noise pollution, my body is automatically kind of, closing down.
Mm.
It's closing down. When I go to hiking to the forest, and I listen to these beautiful sounds of wind, running water, birds singing. So my body also opens up. I can see, like I can sense how my chest is going forward. My shoulders are opening up. I just want to tell you also that, well, I read some time ago, it was a book by a French scientist. His name is Tonatis. He used to say that our ears are actually governors of our body.
Mm.
Our ears are governors of what food, in terms of psychological nourishment, what food are we introducing into our system? Well, and it's true. When you are different, when you make a difference between high pitch, low pitch, you can really sense how your body reacts to that. So if you know to differentiate what is good for you, what sound is good for you, you can also be more aware of like where to go to, like, how to prevent yourself from poisoning yourself with unwanted sounds. And of course, your mission now is also to spread this knowledge and make other people be aware of this poison as well, or healing the opposite, the good, the positive side.
That's super interesting, actually. And I would like to go, sorry, really deep into this conversation, because I mean, there are many theories and there are many opinions about what is good sound and what is good music and what is not. But thankfully, science can prove that today, how even our molecules responding to sound and what is happening by exposing ourselves to this kind of sound or that kind of sound. So anyway, it's quite deep subject, and I can say from my own experience, and it's very interesting because we both share a kind of controversial life. You are doing this job during the daytime, at the same time you're doing sound healing. You have this sensitivity to sound, and I have been for 17 years in clubs and bars, exposing myself to really loud music as a DJ. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I'm doing the same with music therapy, and it's quite interesting.
I guess we really have to know what is the difference. I guess you have to know what is good and what is bad in order to become an authority. So you have to experience both.
Yeah. To be honest, sometimes I even question that, what is good and what is bad. Like, who am I to say what is good and what is bad in the world that has been created the way it has been created, and both good and bad, negative, positive, they're just expressions of the same one thing. But I can say by result, the result justifies what is good and what is bad for our health, for our mental health, for our physical health, psychological or emotional health. So, and both coexist. It's very interesting because sometimes I catch myself thinking that, okay, who am I to say what is good for people and what is not? Again, by result and by effect, I can understand and I can see what is good for me and what is good for people. But then everything is, I mean, the same with music, you know, I mean, I tend to make some distinction between music, and what you said before about yourself being into heavy metal or hard rock, whatever was that music that you were listening. And yes, music expresses a kind of emotion, and
Sure,
sometimes it's intense or gross. And sometimes it's soft, peaceful, harmonious, and they all exist, you know. To be honest, it's interesting we have this conversation and it's flowing like this, because I catch myself thinking, okay, what is right and what is wrong?
Okay, so, you know, in my opinion, first of all, we can just raise people's awareness. Awareness in terms of making themselves to think what is wrong and what is right for themselves, not to be on the airplane mode, autopilot regime. Now also we can teach. So when we talk about distraction behind music, we can say what is distraction is in terms of the physical. How does it express, you know, how the distraction expresses itself in the physical realm? So how loud are you listening to the music, for example? Okay, because you can explain to the person, okay, well, this amount of decibels is really bad for you, and this is okay. Now, in terms of saying this music is harmonious, we can explain people what harmonious is, and harmony has a mathematical formula, it has mathematical ratios. So we can just teach people about these formulas for them to be aware, because look how many people are waking up right now to the subject of diet, what to eat and what not to eat. Sound is as important as the nourishment, as the physical nourishment is as important, because it creates this flora in your emotional and mental body. So if you look at your physical body and think what food should you eat, why won't you look at your emotional and mental body as well?
Correct.
So again, raising the awareness, that's what we can do. But no, we can't judge for somebody else, this music is good for you and this one is no. Listen by yourself, judge by yourself, make conclusion.
Yeah, definitely. And without wanting to exaggerate, I would say that sound is everything, actually. I mean, it's been proved that everything is vibration, energy, and frequency. Sound, this is organized sound, and music is organized sound, so it's the same language. So it's quite important. It's quite important, and it's very interesting that generally this awareness about sound and music, yeah, it's not out there, so we have a lot of work to do.
Some time ago, centuries ago, I would say, people used to listen to the music. They used to sit and going through the experience of listening. Now our perception of sound is quite different. We can put some music and vacuum clean the house or do the dishes, so it's just play on the background. And it's, you know, just this example, I think it reflects so much on how do we really live these days? You know, what is the difference between centuries ago and today? I think our life is a big mess because our consciousness is just so diffused. Our thoughts are so diffused, and yeah, we can use the sound to bring it back to align ourselves with ourselves. Yeah.
Correct. Correct. Now that brings me to the next subject that I would like to talk with you, and because we are actually we're talking about some facts and also some myths, and we're breaking some myths right now related to music, and there has been a movement since 2012, and I think the new age movement started to emerge since 2012 with a new consciousness, with people awakening on the fact of taking care more of themselves, or questioning what is life, what's their purpose here, what can we do to make the world a better place, and how can we listen to better music even. So there are some realities, some facts, and some myths about this new age movement and new age world community that has been emerging, and I think you would like to say something about this topic. It's something that I asked you on the pre-interview form, so let's talk about this. I mean, what are your thoughts? I'm interested to hear.
So I would say that people who don't like to accept this reality the way it is, with all the politicians and, you know, everything we have right now, our medical system, our education, the politics, as I said before, the economics. So people who are looking for alternative world, alternative reality from this reality, they tend to think that everything, literally everything this reality brings us is wrong. And if I'm looking for anything alternative, I would just say I won't use nothing from this reality. I will create a new reality from scratch. And that's how sometimes these people lose the connection with the truth. I would make a few examples. One of the examples is the motion about 432 Hertz. So just in a few words, there are many people. I was actually one of these people who was really advocating for all the music has to be attuned to the tuning of note A of the fourth octave equal 432 Hertz, not the way it is right now that is tuned to A 440 Hertz. Mm-hmm. There are many explanations why it should be 432 and not 440. And if you go into these explanations and you have your sober mind, you just see how many of these explanations are simply made up. There's an official site of 432 Hertz which says even birds are singing in the frequency of 432 Hertz. The running water in the spring is running with this sound of 432 Hertz. They say so much things that are simply nonsense, really nonsense. People forget that it's not about tuning to a particular frequency, but it's about ratios. It's about the formulas of harmony that I was previously speaking about. They neglect these aspects of harmony and ratios by focusing straight into this belief of 432 Hertz. Now, I studied this subject very deep, and I can say that, you know, some people still use 432, some people use 440, some people use different tunings. Again, it's not about tuning. So That's one of the examples, and I will make a conclusion. I just want to bring another example of correlation between the notes of the modern Western scale to the chakras, the knowledge of Vedic tradition. How can we say that the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, or Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Si, with the frequencies assigned to these notes, the modern way of a music scale, how can we say that is related to the chakras? People that say that, they don't even specify which octave the note should be played to activate or whatever, align such and such chakra. People are getting lost in these myths instead of going and exploring the subject. People are not really motivated to educate themselves. Again, as it happens because they don't know who to believe. They cannot believe to what we have right now. But it doesn't say that something else would be necessarily truth. So you have to educate yourself, and that's my conclusion basically. Always think what makes sense, and if you advocate for such and such theory, think, but what if it's not truth? Always have a doubt. A doubt is not necessarily a bad thing. A doubt is a tool for progress. You won't get far without having a doubt. You'll be stuck. So that's my conclusion. And for people who would like to know more about the myths that we are talking about and the nature of 432 or 440 hertz, or the nature about relationship between notes and chakras, I would just like to recommend to go on my website. There is a section Good to Know, and to read over this section. There are a few good tips for better understanding of the subject.
Well, that's great. And it's very interesting actually. And I never believed this thing between, 432 hertz is the frequency that everything has to be aligned and the rest of the frequencies are not good or they're not working. I mean, look at the millions of musical tracks and compositions that have been created throughout the history of music, that they have such a tremendous, beautiful effect on people.
Demetrius, may I cut you off? I just want to say something very important. So, I also watched some things that are like, it's a fraud. Like, I watched on YouTube comparison between the cymatics of 432 hertz and 440 hertz, which was, it was wrong. I mean, there was a person picturing the cymatics, the patterns on the water, when 432 hertz was playing, and was comparing it against the patterns on the water with 440 hertz, and it was wrong. It was, the person who made this video just lied. And it becomes, when everybody believes this lie, when everybody talk about this lie, it becomes it becomes a truth. So we are living in a very, very interesting moment when we can make a difference. And if we won't speak about it, the lie will become another lie, will become an ultimate truth. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much misinformation for sure today. And not to blame internet, but with internet, everything becomes much easier because instantly we can have access to thousands of people. So it is what it is. And I totally understand you. And, but I'd like to ask you something and still stay a little bit into this subject since you have studied. So what is the correlation between the notes and the keys and the chakras? if there is any, because I believe there is, because language, the language of light, the language of energy, the language of sound is one and the same. So there is a correlation. So according to your experience, have you found out what is the right, if I may say?
So generally speaking, well, look, first of all, light and sound, these are two different manifestations of universal energy, and they are different. These energies are different. But let's stick to the sound. Generally speaking, and I'm not talking about chakras right now because I haven't seen chakras. I haven't seen chakras, period. And of course, I haven't seen chakras before or after any particular treatment with particular frequencies. But generally speaking, our body is more perceptive. The lower body, the lower part of our body is more perceptive to the low tones. And the high pitch evokes our reaction of our head, our upper body. That's why all these tones, signals such as ambulance or firefighters, police, they use pretty high pitch and a very specific frequency, and you know, and that's there's a science behind it. So I cannot really speak about chakras because I don't have this experience. I didn't see chakras, but I know how to evoke fear using the sound. I know how to evoke love or compassion using the sound. I know how to evoke mental awareness, alertness using the sound, because I have experience with that. Also, having said that, just very recently, one of my friends, he ran an experiment. So he created this video with pure tones of a different pitch.
What do you mean by pure tone? By pure tones?
Pure tone, the tone without overtones. The pure tone is just a computer tone. So he was running different tones of a different pitch, of different frequencies, and asking to the listener to make a mark on the piece of paper. Where in the body did the listener feel this tone is reflecting, without telling the person what was the note? So he was introducing many, I believe it was 22 different tones of different pitch, different octaves, different notes, and collecting the data from the listeners. Then he came up with a conclusion. Is there really a relationship between the notes and chakras? So this video is posted on Facebook, and there is this video is also on YouTube. I will share this video with you, and everybody can experience this experiment at their home and see for themselves which sound is evoking, what part of the body is being evoked by the particular sound. The belief of correlationship, the relationship between the chromatic scale and the chakras was broken by this experiment. So it's just one of the evidences.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, and it's very simple, you know, it's very simple. You can experience it by yourself without going into different systems of beliefs. Just see by yourself.
That's very interesting. Okay, I'd like us to go back, because we went a little bit far away from what you currently do and what's your expertise. Not far away, because everything is related in the end. But I'd like you to tell us a little bit about your experience with playing and listening and using singing bowls, because If people go to your site, Bells of Bliss, I can say that your site is a bliss itself. It's the most
Thank you so much.
informational, educational, to such an extent that I haven't seen such work before, to be honest, about the quality of the Himalayan bowls, the kind of the sounds, samples of the sounds, what kind of metal, all kinds of informations that it's quite hard to find it out there on the internet all together into such detail, such extent that people can, you can have a full experience of the bowl before they even buy it. They can see it, they can listen to it, they can smell it, they can touch it. So tell me a little bit about, I mean, your experience, your story, and also how this path has benefited you, and in generally, what are the benefits of playing and listening to the Himalayan singing bowls?
Yeah, thank you for this question. First of all, I would like to say what the singing bowl actually is. So it's, some people say it's a music instrument, but it's definitely an instrument, a tool that emits a sound. However, singing bowl, and I'm talking about Himalayan metal singing bowl, emits not only one sound, it's a very complex sound. And listening to this complexity, it's a really strong form of meditation to catch the whole bouquet, the whole accord that singing bowl is able to play, to catch it with your attention. It requires from the listener to be really, really aligned with this practice. So it's a very strong practice. It's a very, very good meditation. And well, the benefit that it brought me, I became a better listener. That's the list I can say. I became a better listener. I can tell you for sure that for the past few years, I have these moments when I talk to the person and catching myself that right now I'm shifting my focus from listening to the content the person actually shares with me to the sound of his voice. And listening to the voice of the person actually gives me much more information than the verbal content the person gives me. I kind of developed this habit while having personal sessions with people. So people were sharing with me their stories, and I was going even deeper. I was hooking up things that they would not share with me just by hearing that, you know, with the tone of their, with the structure of their voice.
It's like listening behind the words somehow, huh?
It's like listening, you know, it's really, okay, so that's another thing. It's, the benefit of singing bowls in my life, actually, singing bowls have brought me an understanding of ethos behind the sound, the character. What is this sound? What is the message? You know, what are the finest nuances within the sound? What are the entities behind these nuances? And these entities altogether, again, they share much more information than the content, than the verbal content. That's one of the benefits. I'll share with you, I was kind of, I was thinking about having this interview a few days ago, and what will I share with Dimitrios and the listeners? And suddenly I remember that experience I had. So a couple years ago, I had a problem with my liver. All of a sudden, I had a few weeks when my liver would just make me a hard time. It was really, I was really in pain. Now I'm a healthy person. doing exercise, I watch my diet. So what is that? What is that? I was meditating on that. What is this pain? You know, before going to doctors or plants or any kind of modalities, well, that's my nature. I want to understand what is there, okay? I couldn't point my finger on it. Now, during one of my practices, when I just strike the ball and I scan my body, I listen with my body to the sound of the ball. So I was passing the area of my liver, and all of a sudden I see this picture of my childhood. I had a memory, a piece of journey when I came back to my childhood, and it was related to a neighbor of mine who I used to assault as a kid. This neighbor guy, his parents were very poor. They were alcoholics, and I used to assault this guy. And I, having this memory during my practice with singing bowl, I thought, okay, this is some obstacle that is kind of jumping into my mind, and I really have to move it and continue my practice. So I'm continuing my practice, and again, I'm passing with the ball next to my liver. I have this memory again. And then I know, okay, I have to go there to this memory and find the relationship. Maybe it's really the reason I have this pain. So I put my ball on the side and I closed my eyes and I went back to my childhood. I asked for apologies from this kid. And I told him about my story. I told him about my journeys. We kind of made friends in my memory. And I told him, whatever damage I brought to you back in these days, please, let's clear it out. I'm not the person who would do any harm to you these days. Let's make friends. And Demetrius, since then, I don't have the pain in my liver.
Wow. I got chills all over my body, dude. It's wow. I even got emotional. I hope the camera is not getting that. Whoa.
I can tell you singing brought many interesting people to my life. It changed people's life. Me playing now for other people, I always wanted to do this world a better place. So I didn't become a politician, right? I didn't become any genius engineer who would all of a sudden create a solution for all the problems. But I do it little by little. I play for people and I change their lives. I saw people crying, standing up of the wheelchairs, having closures with dead parents, name what. So these are the benefits.
That's super fascinating. That's super fascinating. And it's very recently that a lot of informations are coming to me about the memory that is stored in our body. More than our mind and our brain or our memories that we have throughout our life, there is so much memory and so much information that is stored in our body, and literally this many times can create a lot of disorders. And to access this information through sound, that's something that I have seen it myself through my work also, but it's something magical. It's something magical to suddenly realize and pay attention to what's happening in your body, and in extent what's happening in your life, and having sound and music as a tool to guide you there to this moment, to this memory, to this fact, to this thing that's happening in your body. So yeah. It's really fascinating, the whole world of sound. Well, anyway, I'd like to ask you something. Now, to direct the conversation in another place, what keeps Guy with the life that you're having divided in two different parts, with your morning job and with your sound meditations and sound healings that you do? What keeps you in balance? Because I mean, you're exposed in two opposites. Okay, now you're going to your job, wake up in the morning, going to your job, and being exposed to all these sounds and vibrations and everything, and then somehow you have to wrap yourself up and, you know, go do the other side of your life, do your job actually. So what keeps you in balance? What keeps you in order, let's say? I mean, how can I say? Yeah, in balance. I say, well, what's your habit? What's your routine?
So one thing that I do every day, and it became my habit, I don't even have to remind myself or make myself to go to this habit. And I shared with you that it's the sky gazing.
Okay.
I'm looking at the sky, and I really do it every day, at least once a day. And of course, I'm not always in my core. I am not always centered. But when I know I am not centered, I go and do that. I look at the sky and I hold my breath. I watch this space behind the clouds. I recognize the space behind my thoughts, and I recognize the space behind observer. Well, I become an observer, so there is a space behind this observer, and it really helps me to become whole. And sometimes during hard times, I go back to this practice even without having a sky in front of my eyes, but I remember the feeling. I remember the outcome of this practice. And it really helps. This outcome is in the system. I recall it. Now, also, just a few words about my job. My reality is not quite divided for two different worlds. It's one world, and I'm very present being in my job, and I like my job. And I deal a lot with different people, and finding myself within these people. Sometimes I know the reason I am there. I'm there not because I'm a mechanical engineer, but because people talk to me. And they know I'm not an ordinary guy, so they come with different problems that they wouldn't share with nobody else. So there is a reason I'm there.
Yeah, I can reflect to that. I can see myself there also. It's very interesting. And now, okay, you mentioned the word which is really interesting, space.
Yes.
Tell me about space.
Everything is space. Period. And space is everything.
Mm-hmm. In music, I mean, all the great composers, they talk a lot about space, the space between the notes. It's not about the sound itself, but the space between the notes.
Yeah. So the space between the notes, or the sound within the sound, or the silence between the sound, is actually what gives us a feeling of the rhythm. Not only the rhythm of the music, but the rhythm of our life, the rhythm of our reflections to this music. Having sense of the rhythm is essential in our life. If we don't have this sense, we are wasting our life. So space behind the notes, the space behind the sounds. And it's not only the rhythm, it's also once you hear the sound, once you listen to the sound, it's what it does. It's just magnetizing your attention. Once the sound is not there anymore, and you have a pause, there is a relief. So during this relief, during this pause, you can really differentiate where you were following the sound and when you are right now. And this act of reference, it's really good practice. It's a good meditation. It brings you to the presence and to be alive, but for real, it's all about being present. That's why it's so essentially important.
Okay, let me ask you another thing now. What is the rhythm of life?
It's very individual. Well, one of the answers I can give you, it's 60 clicks per minute, right? And minute is a very relative aspect, for the person who is sitting in the restroom, the minute is one thing. For the person who is waiting behind the door of the restroom, the minute is totally different.
That's so true.
Yeah, so the rhythm of life, it's all about you. You are the composer of your song. You are the composer of you. You're the one who is actually assigning the rhythm to your life. That's all.
That's so true. That's so true. Well, we both have an experience with sacred plants, and after this question, I remembered that Mother Ayahuasca has told me on the very first session that the rhythm of life is slow and with love. That's the answer that I got from Mother Nature, I would say. It's quite interesting. Until today, I can be honest to that. I'm not sure I have managed to live according to that. But yeah, anyway. So there's another question for you. What are your plans, since we're talking about rhythm? What are your plans? What are your projects? What are your ideas for the years to come? What are you cooking?
Yeah, so definitely I'm exposing myself these days to more people. I'm playing for more people. I'm showing up in places that I was not going before. And I do that not only because of exposing myself to more people and making more change to other people's life, but I consciously work on my reputation and career, of course. So also I'm working currently on a new album. And since you mentioned about sacred plants, so my new album it has a really strong impact with ayahuasca, and the sound that I'm looking for to record my new album with is the sound of I call it sonic serpents. I'm creating an ayahuasca experience with the sound. Another thing, and that's very important for me these days. I'm creating a program to educate people how to use singing bowls, for both group meditations and personal individual sessions, sound healing sessions. And I want to make this program the most sophisticated program on the market. So I want to give people all information A to Z for both hemispheres of their brain, left hemisphere and right hemisphere, to enhance the intuition of the class and to enhance the rational thinker, the knowledgeable person. So these are my plans.
You sound like a high achiever. I like that, and I'm super looking forward to experience your forthcoming projects. And on behalf of the Music Medicine, I'm here to support everything. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit where people can find today your work, your sounds, what you have recorded, everything. So we share with the people before we wrap it up.
Yeah. So I have my album, which called Bells of Bliss, Layers of Consciousness. I have this album pretty much everywhere: Spotify, YouTube, Google Play, iTunes. You can, and thank you so much. Thank you. If you would like to support me, you can purchase this CD on even Amazon. You can go on my website, bellsofbliss.com, and listen to the CD for free, of course, or YouTube or Spotify as well. The information, the educational part about singing bowls, I share it for free, of course, on my website. As I mentioned before, bellsofbliss.com. Go to the part that called Good to Know, and I'm about to upload more information for people who don't even have a clue what is a sound as a physical phenomena, for people who don't know anything about music theory. So I'm about to upload a new topics and new subjects. I strongly appreciate people that are looking for knowledge. This is, it's one of my, it is my purpose to be here for you and to share what I know with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We're definitely sharing and connecting more in the near future. And it was a great pleasure to have this conversation with you. I mean, we had all these emotional moments and all this exchange of information. I believe people are going to find this very, very, very interesting. So thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Thank you for your job. Thank you for your purpose. And we're going to have more episodes together.
Thank you so much, Demetrius.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you for your work, and thank you for creating this space. Thank you. I believe in you, and I believe in your project. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.